In this video, we're going to continue on with our exercise 3-1, and we're going to learn about snaps. Snaps are tools that allow you to accurately pick a point on an element. For example, when drawing a line, you can use Object Snap to select as a start point the endpoint or midpoint, or another line, or a wall. You can use Object Snaps in two ways: normal mode and temporary override mode. Normal snap mode is a feature that constantly scans the area near your cursor when Revit is looking for these inputs. You can configure which types of points to look for. Using a temporary override Object Snap will allow you to pick individual points quickly. So let's take a look at an overview of the Snap dialog box. Revit provides Snaps dialog box when you specify which object snaps you would like to enable. We're going to open our project, exercise 3-1, and we're going to select Manage, Settings, and Snaps. So Manage, we're going to look for Settings, and then Snaps. Now our Snap dialog box pops up. Take a minute to study the various settings that you can control within this dialog box. Notice the checkbox at the top that allows you to turn this feature off completely. Dimension snaps, right here. This controls the automatic dimensions that Revit suggests when you are drawing. Following the given format, you can add or remove increments. If you are zoomed in close, only smaller increments are used. So see how it goes from 4 feet to 1/4 of an inch. Object snaps down here controls the normal object snaps that Revit scans for while you are drawing. Unchecking any item tells Revit not to scan for it anymore. Currently, all of the object snaps are enabled. Temporary overrides allows you to override certain information. While drawing, you will occasionally want to tell Revit you only want to snap to an endpoint for the next pick. Instead of opening the Snaps dialog box and unchecking every object snap except for endpoint, you can specify a temporary override for the next pick. You do this by typing the 2 letters in parentheses. Over here, we see the letters in parentheses in the Object Snaps area. So you would have to memorize these or write them down. So midpoint would be SM, endpoint would be SE. So if you're just looking for endpoint, you would type SE. Make sure the Snaps Off option is unchecked in the upper left-hand corner, and then turn, because we don't want to turn the snaps completely off, so make sure this is unchecked. Click on the Check All button to make sure all of the snaps are selected, and then we're going to say OK. So understanding snap symbols. Take a look at page 3-17 of your textbook. It shows you the different symbols that are used. So for intersection, we would type SI, and an intersection would be shown as an X. For endpoint, we would see a square. For midpoint, we would see a triangle. For center, a circle. For nearest, an X, and then perpendicular looks like perpendicular lines with a 90-degree angle, and tangent is a circle with a 0 or a line underneath it. Let's talk about setting object snaps. You can set Revit to have just one or all snaps running at the same time, and we're going to look at how to do that. So we're going to go to the File tab, and we're going to do a Save As. And we're going to save this project as exercise 3-2. Okay, so we're going to go exercise 3-2, and we're going to say save. Now, as we discussed previously, we're going to open the Snaps dialog box. And we're going to make sure only the following snaps are checked: endpoint, midpoint, centers, intersections, and perpendicular. We're going to say OK. Now that you have the snaps adjusted, you're going to try to use them while drawing. So we're going to select detail line. So again, annotate detail line. And we're going to move our cursor to the lower left portion of the diagonal line. So notice when I do that, the endpoint pops up. I am going to click this point, and then I'm going to move my mouse up towards the center of this circle. So you see that it's called center, and I'm just hovering, I'm not clicking yet. Once I get to the center and I see that snap indicated, I'm going to click. Then next to, I'm going to come back down to this line and I'm going to draw a perpendicular line. And I'm going to click. Then I'm going to come over to the midpoint of this rectangle and I'm going to click. I lost my line. And then I'm going to come back to this line and I want a perpendicular line. Now I feel like perpendicular got turned off, so what I'm going to do is escape for a minute and I'm going to go back to my snaps, and perpendicular is on. So what I'll do is I just want to look at SP for perpendicular. So I'll go back to annotate detail line, come back to this point, and I'm going to type SP over here. There we go. I'm going to click into the perpendicular line. Then I'm going to go from here to a tangent. And let's see if we can find the shortcut for tangent, ST. So I'm going to type ST, and that lets me click on that tangent. And I'm going to click from the tangent. Then I'm going to go down to the intersection, and it doesn't want us to select it, so for intersection I'm going to type SI, so it finds that intersection. There we go. And then I'm going to go from that intersection to finally the midpoint of this line, and then I'm going to click modify. So now I have a really weird looking line. It might look a little bit different than what's in the textbook, and that's just because of the placement of where I placed my circle and my rectangle. But make sure that you follow the path that I followed and that path that's labeled in the book. So I went up, down, over. And if you need to use those type commands that I was using, please refer back to page 3-17 so you can see the keyboard shortcuts. Now we're going to save our project. Okay. Is this a residential example? Not really yet. The point that we're focusing on here is we're just learning fundamentals. So although we have an architectural template, which has a lot of things like floors and ceilings, we're just focusing on using some basic tools. What I want to point out next is reminders. Let's talk about reminders in Revit. Revit is configured to remind you to save every 30 minutes so you do not lose any work. It is recommended that you do not simply click cancel, but you click save the project. So on page 3-19 of your book, it's giving you an example of what the reminder will look like. If you take a lot of time to do your project, every 30 minutes a reminder box will pop up, and when the reminder box pops up, click save the project. Okay, we're going to save this, exercise 3-2, and then we're going to move on to exercise 3-3, which is edit tools.